When you open your heart to trust, their silence hurts more than any harsh words ever could. In our modern lives, millions of us have felt abandoned, standing alone on a map filled with promises of love. You've sent texts at midnight, waited anxiously knowing you'll hear nothing back, or hoped for a genuine apology only to receive indifference. That pain isn't a fleeting wound, it rips apart your belief in connection and makes you doubt your own worth. For those with an avoidant attachment style, admitting wrongdoing, even uttering the words, "I'm sorry," is a monumental struggle because it threatens their self-esteem and need for control. They can withdraw coldly, go silent to the point you feel invisible in their mind. You wonder, why won't they apologize? What needs to happen for them to recognize they hurt me? It is precisely that unacknowledged pain that sparks a relentless question. Is there a code that makes an avoidant tear down their walls of pride, bow their head, and express regret? The answer lies in two seemingly opposite forces, scarcity and contrast. Not desperation or pleading, rather, it's the true distance, the moment you release the chase and rebuild your life, that turns the key to regret within them. Imagine, you stop waiting for a call that never comes. You immerse yourself in health, pursue passions, reconnect with friends, and suddenly, they realize you've vanished from their reference frame. Your absence, like a scarce resource, jolts their heart and compels a belated apology. In the next section, we'll delve into 3 real-life stories that prove the power of this formula and explain why not your pleading, but your inner strength is what forces an avoidant to finally admit fault and come back. In the initial phase of any relationship with someone who has an avoidant attachment style, the lure and release phenomenon unfolds in a way that makes your heart race and your mind spin. From the series of gentle messages in the early morning, sincere compliments about your interests, to intimate late-night conversations, you feel warmth and closeness as if they're completely immersed in you, unlike anyone you've ever met. In those moments, you believe you found someone willing to devote all their attention to you, that this relationship will withstand any challenge, creating a safe space where 2 souls merge. Yet, that initial radiant light often flickers out when the avoidant partner suddenly retracts, creating an invisible void that leaves you stunned. The withdrawal could be a single evening of unreturned texts, a week without a call, or a subtle coldness that seems to erase your existence. They never shout, "We're breaking up," nor do they offer any explanation for the silence. It's simply a gradual disappearance, gentle yet enough to leave you bewildered, wondering what you did wrong and whether this love is strong enough to survive. This phenomenon is not random. Rather, it signals the activation of the safe distance defense mechanism in an avoidant psyche. The moment they sense any need to share too much emotion or lose autonomy, they instantly shut down. It might occur when you delve too deeply into past traumas or express excessive expectations for the relationship, threatening their emotional reserves. From an academic standpoint, this behavior can be explained by the safe distance hypothesis, which posits that an avoidant maintains a certain distance to protect self-esteem and independence. They use withdrawal as a silent cue. I don't want to get too close. I need to preserve my private space. Oh, experientially, the initial lure stage is hypnotic. You're drawn in by their mystery, the push-pull dynamic, the sense that something extraordinary awaits. This mirrors Sternberg's triangular theory of love, where intimacy and passion dominate, but commitment has yet to form firmly. Avoidants excel at creating this early closeness without revealing long-term intentions, quickly ensnaring their partner in an emotional trap. When this phase ends, when the passion threshold is reached, and they feel suffocated, they abruptly shift to the withdrawal phase, sealing off all communication channels. This behavioral shift can happen in weeks or even days, yet its psychological impact is long-lasting and profound. You might feel insecure, doubt yourself, or attempt to reel them back by sending more messages, calling repeatedly, or sacrificing personal activities just to await a faint response. You rationalize, they must be busy, they're probably stressed at work today, or they just need some space. But the more you justify, the deeper you fall into the emotional dependency spiral, where their silence becomes addictive, because at least you still cling to hope they'll return as they once were. This exemplifies the interpersonal lure and release effect. The lure creates desire, while the release evokes a sense of lack, triggering the scarcity principle that makes you crave them even more. However, It's not only about the lure-release cycle, it conveys a deeper message. Behind the facade of fierce independence, an avoidant struggles with fear of entrapment and control loss. When you act too assertively or show too much vulnerability, they feel threatened, their heart contracts, and they are compelled to retreat to safeguard their avoidant self. While this behavior may appear callous, from a developmental psychology perspective, they're reacting to childhood wounds, where closeness with caregivers could undermine their quest for autonomy. Thus, each withdrawal reactivates those inner scars, and silence becomes their most effective defense. Understanding this phenomenon reveals that the key isn't to force an immediate apology from them, but to recognize the futile chase stage so you can redirect your focus inward. When you accept that it's not your deficiency but their defense mechanism at work, you can break free from the cycle of suffering and prepare for the next steps, perhaps a genuine no-contact period where you invest in self-recovery, nurture your self-worth, and create enough distance for them to perceive your presence as truly scarce. It is precisely within that silent void, when you effectively disappear from their world, that an avoidant must confront the emptiness they've engineered. The contrast between when you were present and when you're genuinely absent generates a powerful contrast effect, compelling them to wonder, can I regain that sense of security and excitement when she's gone? That very question ignites their journey back, a journey where they have no choice but to break the silence, acknowledge the void they created, and ultimately utter the two words they once deemed too luxurious. I'm sorry. As we transition from the emotionally charged lure and release phase into the next chapter of our journey, we begin delving into the avoidant psychology to decode why they keep apologies locked away and how you can leverage this knowledge to turn the tables. For an avoidant, a relationship isn't merely two individuals intertwining. It's a sophisticated dynamic system where every signal of control and positioning is meticulously observed and reacted to. First, avoidants keenly sense whether you are maintaining an energetic waiting stance. Waiting here is more than simply staying silent and hoping for their call. It encompasses your entire emotional state revolving around them, checking your phone compulsively, analyzing every sign, even mentally rehearsing conversations whenever the screen goes dark. They pick up these silent signals. I'm still here, ready and watching. In their eyes, your unceasing presence means you are not scarce, so there's no fear of losing you. At this point, even if you stop messaging or calling, they still believe deep within your mind you await their return, an assumption that kills any motivation for them to come back. Once they perceive you are waiting, avoidants feel no regret nor pressure. Instead, they feel safe in the driver's seat. Maintaining control grants them freedom to withdraw or return at will. That's why pleading, crying, or logical arguments to make them apologize consistently fail, because the more you beg, the more you demonstrate your weakness, showing them you are an inexhaustible resource. Next, when an avoidant realizes you have placed them on a pedestal, granting them absolute privilege, ready to sacrifice everything, treating them as the universe's center, their response is to push you away. Elevating them as a flawless figure triggers their alarm. If I'm too important to them, I risk losing independence, fear being bound to unattainable standards. This is the anti-pedestal defense. They reject the special stature you provide and must turn away cold, distant, silent. Even your attempts to flatter, protect, or justify only fortify their withdrawal, as they need to reaffirm personal freedom. Yet it is in the realm of genuine distance, when you cease all waiting and pedestal building, that an avoidant first confronts absence and insecurity. While you linger in anticipation, you stick to them like a shadow. But when you break free, vanish from their previous orbits, you become unpredictable and valuable. Then, the principle of scarcity emerges. Humans cherish what is rare, and you become a luxury, not easily attainable. Beyond scarcity lies the contrast effect. An avoidant accustomed to your constant availability is suddenly faced with a new version of you, self-reliant, independent, engaged with meaningful personal pursuits. They compare then vs. now, and this abrupt disparity sparks surprise, even guilt. How could I have underestimated her so badly? When distance and contrast coincide, they have no choice but to face the reality. You are no longer their infinite resource. You did not wait for them. You did not pedestalize them. You live freely, and this realization compels them to ask, what did I do wrong? In summary, decoding avoidant behavior rests on three pivotal factors. Sensitivity to your waiting posture. If you chase, they feel no risk of loss. Repulsion when pedestalized, fearing loss of freedom and self. They create immediate distance, triggering scarcity and contrast. Only when you truly disappear rare and strikingly different do they recognize your value and remorse. In the next section, we will explore how to strategically employ these three principles, not only to compel an avoidant to apologize, but also to rebuild the relationship on foundations of respect, balance, and genuine health. Transiting from our previous analysis of avoidant behavior, we now delve into three vivid case studies that demonstrate how the principles of halting pursuit, dismantling the pedestal, and leveraging scarcity plus contrast are applied in real life. The stories of Emma, Olivia, and Ethan not only reveal the varied ways avoidants react, but also unveil the secret to compelling them to break their silence and offer a heartfelt apology. Emma first attempted a half-measured no contact with her avoidant partner. In the initial attempt, she didn't fully sever communication. She still liked his posts, covertly monitored his stories, and left her chat app open without responding to messages. As a result, he comfortably assumed she was still there, ready to wait. Even without actively calling, he remained untroubled, feeling no fear of losing her and no pressure to call back. But on the second attempt, Emma was resolute. She deleted the chat app, removed every icon reminding her of him, and disabled all related notifications. Her free time was devoted to thrice-weekly gym sessions, piano lessons, and art workshops with friends. She posted vibrant travel photos, cover song videos on her YouTube channel, and yoga practice highlights. Suddenly, her presence became scarce and valuable. He could no longer track her, didn't know her life's pace anymore. Here, the scarcity principle took effect. The fear of losing her compelled him to pick up the phone one evening and say unexpectedly, "I'm sorry. I miss you and regret hurting you." Next, Olivia's story offers another fascinating perspective. Before their breakup, Olivia was always lightning fast to respond whenever her avoidant boyfriend needed her. A single message, "Are you okay?" would prompt her to drop everything, cancel dinners, and rush to him. She praised him in public, mediated his anger, and compromised endlessly. They lived in a world where Olivia was his universe's center, but that inadvertently placed him on a too high pedestal. When her admiration and dependency reached an excess, he felt suffocated, fearing a loss of freedom. After a heated argument, he vanished without a word. Realizing her old strategy had failed, Olivia rebalanced her life's trinity: health, career, and social connection. She adopted a healthy diet, joined boxing classes, and achieved new milestones by completing a major project. She spent time with family, hung out with friends, and volunteered at a children's home. No longer ready to sacrifice everything for him, she rediscovered herself and confidently stood on her own 2 feet. Her calm decisiveness forced him to confront his sense of loss. One evening, he came to her door with tearful eyes, saying, "I was wrong. I never imagined you could be this strong. I'm sorry." His apology wasn't a plea, but a humble recognition of Olivia's true worth. Finally, there's Ethan, whose apology came as a stunned compliment. Ethan didn't explicitly say, "I'm sorry," but he created a profound contrast. Previously, Lily, his girlfriend, had always filled the emptiness in his life, bearing all emotional burden. After they broke up, Lily committed to a complete transformation. She paid off $5,000 in credit card debt, took up pole dancing and aerial yoga, enrolled in therapy, and undertook a social media detox to nurture her mental health. Rather than waiting for him, she filled her life with new passions and growth that astounded everyone. When Ethan saw Lily again at a small gathering, he exclaimed, "Wow, you're so different, stronger, and more independent. I never thought you could change like this." That was the avoidant's silent apology, acknowledging he had underestimated her, expressing pride and regret in a single sentence. Through the contrast effect, the stark difference between Lily's before and after flipped a switch in Ethan's mind, compelling him to admit his fault without uttering the word sorry. The stories of Emma, Olivia, and Ethan illustrate that although an avoidance mode of apology may vary from direct words to implicit acknowledgement, the essence lies in genuinely creating distance, lowering the pedestal, and showing them you're not easily possessed. When scarcity and contrast operate together, they finally experience absence, surprise, and regret that drives them to apologize. Transitioning to our final segment, we will explore how to flexibly combine these three tactics, not only to elicit an apology, but also to rebuild the relationship on foundations of respect, balance, and genuine attunement, a true healing journey for both partners. Transitioning from the three illuminating case studies of Emma, Olivia, and Ethan, we can distill a powerful overarching principle. An avoidant individual will never throw a tantrum to demand an apology. Only when reality forces them to confront a tangible loss will they lower their guard and proudly admit their wrongdoing. This principle rests on three inseparable pillars: stopping the chase, ceasing to plead, and focusing on building your own life, thereby creating sufficient distance and a strong contrast effect to trigger in them a sense of absence, regret, and ultimately, a sincere apology. First, stopping the chase is more than merely ceasing texts or calls. It's a bold internal declaration that you refuse to remain tethered behind them. When you abandon the habit of agonizing over every word, conceal your feelings, and stop tracking their every move on social media, you send a message that you no longer reserve your emotional energy exclusively for them. That message shatters the avoidance assumption of permanence in the relationship. They believed you would always wait, that even if they withdrew, you'd remain. Once you prove the opposite, that you have completely exited their orbit, they realize they are no longer the sole center of your world. Next, ceasing to plead fortifies your declaration of self-worth. To beg for forgiveness or a second chance makes you appear diminished in an avoidant's eyes, as they interpret it as proof of their absolute control. You place your happiness entirely in their hands. When you stop pleading, you shift from a passive to an active stance, counteracting the avoidant's active safety mechanism that sustains their sense of empowerment. In the silent space devoid of entreaties, the avoidant realizes, if they don't attempt to make amends, the relationship will inevitably end, and who, then, bears responsibility for its collapse? Finally, focusing on building your own life is the decisive factor in creating sufficient distance while simultaneously activating the contrast effect. Distance is not merely temporal or spatial. It encompasses the quality of your experiences. You invest in new hobbies, career goals, friendships, family bonds, and mental and physical well-being. When you immerse yourself in a positive, meaningful rhythm, you not only demonstrate to the avoidant what they've lost, but also render the old you unfamiliar and less appealing. The contrast between someone once ready to sacrifice everything for them and the new version, self-sufficient, vibrant, and energized, delivers a shock they cannot ignore. Together, when you halt the chase, stop pleading, and concentrate on constructing a fulfilling personal life, you transform from an inexhaustible resource into a scarce commodity. In the moment, the avoidant realizes they've been cut off from the joy, support, and affection they once took for granted. They experience emptiness, loneliness, and fear of loss. These feelings strike at the heart of their self-esteem and loss of control anxieties, critical elements of their defense mechanisms compelling them to act, to call back, request a meeting, or at the very least, utter an apology to ease their conscience. Within that silent void, the words "I'm sorry" cease to be a luxury and become a necessity for them to restore mental equilibrium and inner balance. They lift their heads, no longer buoyed by invulnerability, and admit, "I was wrong. I underestimated your worth." When that apology finally emerges, it transcends empty words, signifying an internal breakthrough, a clear recognition of their mistake, and a genuine desire to repair both their ego and the relationship. Transitioning to our final section, we will create a detailed, step-by-step roadmap to implement these universal principles in practice. From designing the strategic silence phase to identifying interaction tactics for when they reach out, so you not only secure an apology but also establish the groundwork for a healthy, balanced, and mutually respectful relationship. As we conclude our journey into the code that compels an avoidant partner to apologize, remember that the ultimate goal isn't merely hearing the words, "I'm sorry." It's about rebuilding the relationship on mutual respect, balance, and deep understanding. You've navigated the phases from lure and release to decoding avoidant psychology, witnessed 3 vivid case studies, and distilled the core principle: stop chasing, stop pleading, and focus on your own life to create sufficient distance and powerful contrast. More importantly, this process reminds you of your inner strength, a value that cannot be replaced. When you cease seeking external validation and fully invest in personal growth, you not only trigger your avoidant partner's recognition of loss, but also affirm to yourself that you deserve the very best. Continue to nourish the health, career, relationships triad and maintain healthy boundaries. Whether the apology arrives late or not at all, you can still take pride in your journey of growth and freedom. That, above all, is your greatest victory. Living fully in each moment, unshackled by fear of loss, and shining with your own unique worth. Every relationship requires effort from both sides, but only when each person stands firmly on their own 2 feet can they truly walk side by side. Let intentional distances become catalysts for transformation, and let love be reborn on a foundation of freedom and mutual appreciation.